Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Ivory Tower Boiler Room. Yes, Danielle is here with me again. Now you can see Danielle. So we're just going right back to where we left off from part one. And you might notice there's an art exhibit behind me, and there's a new co-host with me. So,
Hello, everyone.
Who is this surprise face?
I am Alex Maccaro. I am a research associate here at the museum,
Oh, at what museum?
the Nassau County Museum of Art.
Yes. So we'll get into why we're at the Nassau County Museum of Art. We teased that we would record, and I always deliver on my promises. So welcome back. We had just ended, Danielle, with, I thought, a really interesting moment. We hadn't talked about Mr. Russell a lot, and we didn't talk about the men in this society. So, let's jump there. Why do you think Mr. Russell relies so much on his wife to make negotiations for business?
Well, I think that the women in the society, their job was to socialize, to fundraise, which was their job, and socialize, right? And so a lot of the business deals were done within that social circle. All of the events that they would host and things like that became the place where you would not necessarily talk in the office, but quietly get deals done. The men over dinner would go and play pool like they did in the billiards room in the Russell's house. And that was where they discussed their deals. And, you got a pretty good example of it at that charity where they were making Bertha leave. And Mr. Russell came in and bought everybody's goods and basically said, if your husbands are wise, they'll do like I did and they'll do business with me. And so I think that it all kind of ties together. And that was the women's role in society there, was to socialize and fundraise and things like that. They couldn't have careers as men could.
Yeah, right. Their careers are the charities, and especially Marion, our protagonists who we talked about Bridges, the new and old money divide.
Right.
She wants to get involved with more philanthropy. She even goes to Clara Barton's American Red Cross speech, as does Bertha. So they kind of want to be on the front line of women's rights. But there's also this balance, where they want to be involved, but they don't want it to look like it's a profession for money they need.
Right,
exactly. They're not making money.
They need to have the face of being good people.
Yeah, what's their portfolio of charities?
Exactly.
Right, and so where are we, Alex? Yes, we're at the art museum, but we're actually in a Gilded Age mansion.
That is correct. We are in the former estate of Lloyd Stevens Bryce, who was a congressman from New York who edited a publication whose name I cannot quite remember. But after Mr. Bryce sold this mansion, was the estate of Childs Frick, whom you may know was the son of coke and steel magnate Henry Clay Frick.
Yeah.
And Mr. Frick bought this property for his son in 1919 as a wedding gift. And the Fricks lived very nice. So the Fricks lived here from 1919 until Mr. Frick's death in 1965. And this mansion was designed by Ogden Codman Jr., whom you may know as an famous architect and author who's written a publication with Edith Wharton. And
yes, sorry to cut you off. Is that the one that she writes about design?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay,
that's correct.
Yeah.
And when the Fricks moved here, Sir Charles Carrick Allen, I think it was his name, redesigned the exterior, and this mansion was called Clayton. And the Fricks lived here, as I said,
that's a while.
Yeah, from 1919 till his death in 65.
But and to imagine too, if you've never been to the Nassau County Art Museum, which you all need to, Alex is not only in his curatorial role here, but we're also doing some Bureau Nassau County tourism. Hey, everyone, legislators, get on our payroll. No, no one endorses that message here. But right outside is the highway, right? We're on Northern Boulevard, I guess is what it's called then, right? Okay, yes. So viaduct, and I think what's so fascinating is Can you imagine seeing that development of the highway, living in a Gilded Age mansion, like from 1919 to the 60s?
Yeah,
Like, what a different world.
Absolutely.
absolutely, for
Right?
sure.
And then, like, if you actually lived here too, right in the 60s, starting to have like counterculture protesting and the art like movement with feminism and you know LGBTQ rights. I don't know. I'm always fascinated with people who stayed in these homes and how are they balancing these.
Absolutely.
Well, it happens in the series, balancing electricity, balancing women's rights.
Right.
You know, how do you go back and forth between societies? And
Well, I think that in the series, The Gilded Age, when you see Mrs. Astor and how anti-progress she is,
Absolutely.
her friend says it best, that I fear that you're going to lose this war. You know, if you don't move with the progress, you're going to be left behind.
For sure, for sure.
Well, and do we really, you know, I'm sure there's ancestors out there, but I don't really hear the Astor name anymore. I mean, I couldn't tell you the lineage, like, oh, so-and-so is an Astor.
Right.
Like, it doesn't carry
No,
like
I think you hear like Rockefellers and things like that still. Yeah, Vanderbilt,
Susan
Astor.
Rockefeller.
Astor, I agree with, and I honestly don't know the lineage to present day.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that they probably, if we know what happens, they've married new money, so I'm sure the name might have been a Vanderbilt, Rockefeller.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, Alex, Danielle, how much you know of the Khans from Ohika Castle, but it's kind of like with the Frick family. I mean, I was just on the Upper East Side, photos on our Instagram at Ivory Tower Boiler Room, but I passed the Frick collection, which is still undergoing the main.
It's undergoing major renovation.
Because I love when the museum is there in the house.
Absolutely.
Which is why I love the Nassau County Art Museum. But I just imagine, okay, this is my father's mansion. I'm on the Upper East Side, and now I'm going to go out to the country to Roslyn. Like, it's the way that the Khans also had Sacred Heart was their mansion.
That's right.
And then they went out to Ohika. And I always say that's the furthest you think of the mansions because it's in Cold Spring Harbor, Woodbury, which is kind of like out there. And actually, no, Centerport probably is the farthest, which would be the Vanderbilt mansion.
Yeah, there are a few that go out that way, but not a whole lot. You're right. They kind of end in that like Huntington line.
Yeah, well, because they're away from their social scene, right? I mean, if you think about here, I am sure there were so many mansions in Roslyn Harbor, like, right? And it matters. Who are your friends? Who's on your social calendar? And like, let's talk about women. So we were just having a conversation before recording. Like this room we're in now, we're on the second floor and had something to do with a bedroom or something to do with, we're near the Frick. This is
Frick's dressing room.
This is Frick's dressing room.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, the home was where women really gained power. And I think, Danielle, you were like getting to an interesting point with that. Can you share it with the audience?
You know, I think that something I was thinking about actually on my way over here was how Marion is being so forced to marry into wealth. And that is literally like her job, her mission in life needs to be, whether she likes it or not, to marry into wealth. And that is to procure the future for her entire family. It all rests on her shoulders. Because her father kind of squandered whatever they had. But what was getting my goat was how Tom, her love interest, could move to New York with no money,
no
lineage, and be able to not only date her potentially, but date another woman who he was kind of seeing on the side, trying to figure out where he would get the money from the fastest.
Yeah, and what is that saying? A wolf in sheep's clothing?
Yeah.
It kind of is like that, right? And rake. A rake, if you don't know, in the 1700s, a rake meant like a gambling, lustful.
That's like his last name.
Pleasure seeker.
A horny man. We'll try to, I guess, watch our language in the Frick property here. But, you know, so, but it's true. He is.
It was like
aggravating
me as I was thinking about it because she was so in love and she really wanted to marry for happiness. And he just proved to her that no matter what you want as a woman in that time, you can't have what you want.
Well, And how
I
do
don't know if we're moving
Oh.
reverse in present day.
Yeah.
Things like
Well, we
that.
see that, right, with
You know.
flashiness, like we were talking about,
Mhm.
there's that saying, like, money screams, or my friend always says, money screams, but wealth is quiet.
Mhm.
And like, when someone revs their engine of a car, like, to me, that's like, okay, I'm so flashy, like, look at me.
Right.
Like, in a way, they're forcing themselves into a social class, and usually it's because they want to perceive themselves as having money they don't have.
Sure.
But again, I also blame that on our capitalist model, because it's kind of more and more and more.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, I think that in that era, particularly, the idea, you know, the old money always built these like austere brownstones, and it was the new money, the Vanderbilts, that came in with their limestone and carvings and ornate and literally gilded.
Mhm.
It wasn't solid gold, it was gilded, it was made to look
Yep.
expensive. And that was their mission, was to prove their wealth and establish their place
Mhm.
in society.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, and I think they succeeded in the materialist realm,
Absolutely.
you know, and I don't even know, were the Fricks, because I think Danielle and I were going back and forth. We didn't know, like, would we consider the Fricks new, old, a blend?
Not quite sure.
I mean, I guess if they were buying this house in the earlier part of the 1900s, I mean, I think that the real Gilded Age is considered like late 1800s, right?
Yes,
So I would
It's
say
true.
they were probably on the tail end of that,
probably.
but yeah, so maybe newer money.
Yeah,
Newer.
not, like, we're so close to, Cedarmere,
Mhm.
to William Cullen Bryant.
Yes.
Like, I consider him more of an older money.
Yes.
Like buying the farmland, right? Like, I think if you bought, well, that's the old money establishment, is they bought land, like they
Yeah.
bought farmland, they
Yes.
kind of had the name in the
Mhm.
blue book.
I mean, they were the ones though that like settled Long Island. Like, they were
Yes.
the first ones
Southampton,
here.
the
Yeah.
Hamptons.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yep.
For
Yes.
sure.
Which I think is
I mean,
one of
if
the
you
oldest
look
areas.
at like late 1700s maps of Long
Mhm.
Island, it's just tracts of land that are owned by the same people.
Yeah, and it says
There's
their
like
name,
6
doesn't
family
it?
names.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
There's like
Absolutely.
Hicks at one point.
Mhm.
Yep.
I mean, Bryant's is another one, but there's Titus is another one. I mean, there's like there's like 6 families. And they own a tract here and a tract there and a tract there. And then little by little, they merge them all together,
Mhm.
you know, and then pass them off to their children. And
Sure.
Yeah, and I think now, like, what really matters is with that kind of the inheritance money, like what the behind the scenes of trust funds
Mhm.
and generational wealth, right? Like, in my opinion, like our own money, because we're now, if we think about it, we're over 100 years from when the Gilded Age, more than 100 years.
Mhm.
We're almost like 140 years
Yeah.
from the beginning of the Gilded Age.
Yeah.
Yes.
That, like, I think what we would consider more of that old money is like, you don't have debt, you have generational wealth.
right.
Mhm.
But like you were saying, Danielle, I remember you said people still live in Gilded Age mansions. They're just not screaming it. They're not like, hey, everyone.
Right, because at this point, even the new money of that era is considered extremely old money
Yeah.
now,
Mhm.
right? So
Yeah, like,
I,
sorry.
I think that, and we touched on this last time, that the pandemic put,
Mhm.
you know, a lot of people, it put a lot of cash in their pockets and kind of, I think, revived some of these old mansions that were kind of sitting destitute without anyone to kind of rehab them for a while. And you know, from a real estate standpoint, which is primarily my focus,
Mhm.
that kind of revived the Gilded Age mansion real estate.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Unbelievably. I mean, I can't, you know, those houses don't change over very often. And if you do come in with the money to, you know, rehab them, I would hope that you're holding on to it for generations. But I'm really interested to see years and years and years from now
Mhm.
what ends up happening. You know, just earlier, I guess earlier this year, the Woolworth Mansion in Glen Cove
Mhm.
changed hands, which had been on the market for years. That was listed by Margaret Troutman of Compass, and she did a fantastic job and got it sold like pretty quickly.
Wow.
What was the price? Can you?
You know what? I honestly think it started out around close to $20 million, but it ended up selling, I want to say, for 9-ish. Don't
Okay.
quote me on
Oh,
that.
wow. Okay. So like, because it needed work.
I mean, it needed a lot of work.
Yeah.
It had seen fires throughout history. But Smeros Architects is in there
Mhm,
now
mhm.
rehabbing the house.
Yeah, I know Smeros, yeah.
I was like, please post progress photos.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what's happening. I
Right.
want to know that this is getting new life
Mhm.
and preservation. I'm so excited.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
so
Yeah,
excited.
well, and like what I love about where we are right now is what I love about the access of what Nassau County did for
Mhm.
here,
Mhm.
for the art museum, for Old Westbury Gardens,
Right,
for
right.
Sands Point Preserve.
Right.
Trying to think. I don't want to leave any of them off because I know they
And
listen.
Long Island has a really good preservation
Yes. Oh,
society.
planting field.
Yes, Plainfield.
And what I love is here too, everyone, like, you might get a lot of now, nature enthusiasts, which is good. There are beautiful trails here
Absolutely.
that I've walked and you can see.
145
Hempstead Harbor.
acres.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of,
145 acres.
yeah, yes.
And it's free to park and explore the nature.
Absolutely.
And that's one of my favorite things is that the Gilded Age mansions have become nature trails.
Mhm.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I guess what I'm getting at is though, if we were here right after the death of
Mhm.
Child's Frick, right?
Mhm.
I think the mansion was in that disrepair that happened
was.
to almost
Yeah.
all of them, where
Mhm.
like I remember in Okeka seeing pictures of like camp settlements,
Mhm.
like people had kind of like you were saying, they had actually like built fires to just
Mhm.
stay warm.
Yeah.
Like it became
A lot of squatters here.
squatters.
Yeah.
And there was really no one monitoring because the families had just
Yeah, I mean,
sold
they
it off and
converted them.
yeah.
Because at some point, the institution of income tax comes
Mhm,
in and it
mhm.
kind of puts an end to this era
Absolutely.
where you can't afford the upkeep.
Mhm.
And the money that you were making from the railroad and the oil and all that kind of stuff is now getting taxed, and now you're taking home
Mhm.
half of what you were
Mhm.
before.
Yeah.
And then you have property taxes. So if you're a current day owner of these houses,
Mhm.
it's impossible.
Mhm.
Yeah, because you're not just living in your suburban home or even living in a condo community, like you are the one in charge of the upkeep.
Yeah.
Like, you look at the land out here, I mean,
Yeah.
Forget it.
I would be overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Like,
If I may interject.
yes.
So after Frick's death, this property sort of sat in disrepair for about 4 years. And the county actually purchased the land and we operated under the Nassau County Museum of Fine Arts until 1989, when we became a private non-for-profit. And essentially we leased the land from the county, but the museum are actually a private non-for-profit.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, that is really
It
good.
probably allows you guys as a museum to operate more the way that you would want to than under.
I would
the
think
management
so.
of the
Yes,
county as
yes.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're not in New York State Park, which can be
No, we're not in
limiting,
State Park.
especially for visibility. Again, this is like a call to New York State Park because or any park service, because there are actually a lot of author homes that are run by a park system.
Mhm.
I'm thinking of Edgar Allan Poe's
Oh, yes.
home in Philly, or even Whitman's home in
Yes.
Camden. And because they don't have enough funding, sometimes they can't afford people to be there for touring. Like the
Yeah.
appointments are very limited. They can't go to conferences or events to like explain the history.
Mhm.
So I love, like, this is a call. I think we need more of these private not-for-profits.
Not-for-profits,
Here
yeah.
again, want to make sure I use the right term.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so another element we didn't really talk about was the juiciness, which was sex in the Gilded Age.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure, the Frick family had its own, they had their own sorry, don't want to spread that. Another really the ghosts are gonna come for us. But, I'm sure that they enjoyed themselves as a couple.
Yeah.
So there is that moment there's a few moments, but we have Mr. Russell. We think he might go for the lady's
Oh,
maid,
yeah.
for Bertha's maid, because she literally throws herself naked in the bed.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's like she goes for this proposition, but he
turns her down.
turns her down.
But he also they really do show a lot of love and like minor sexuality between the two of them, but like how he comes into her bedroom and they very clearly have a relationship of love. There's a real connection.
Which is
there.
not common.
Right. It wasn't
for
just,
their
well,
families.
exactly. It wasn't just you have to marry this person because it
Yeah.
would be good for our family,
Yeah.
which
We're just gonna tie.
is what she's trying to do to her daughter, which is
Yeah, like she's doing what the reverse of what she did
Right.
with Mr. Russell. But again, like we kind of know she didn't come
Right.
from money.
Right.
Like, I mean, I'm sure she came from some money, but it seems like she was more of like a middle class person
Right.
who married wealthy.
Right. And like any parent would, they want better for their children. So understandably so. But ultimately, you would hope that love is one of those important things for your children.
But I think we see that, I mean, I see that so much now, not to get all existential on everyone, but, and again, you're right, Danielle, you pinpointed that like you want better, but I even see like parents who didn't go to college are the ones who usually are even more of an enforcer for their children.
Yeah, the things that you didn't have, you want for your children when it may not be what's right for them.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure too, the ones, I'm not saying the ones who did go to college aren't also trying to, have expectations, but it is, you're right. Sometimes like what someone didn't do, it's that living vicariously through the children. And
Absolutely.
that, it's a toxic trait.
Absolutely.
But I'm not a parent, so we'll see. Check back if I'm a parent eventually. We'll see how this ages. But yeah, the other sexual moment I really like is it's not just sexual, but it's the way that queer male desire happens with the Van Ryn son and forget the name of his lover. But the Van Ryn son knows he needs to marry. He's like, no, I have to marry. We're not going to just stay bachelors.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because he could be a bachelor.
Was fascinating in that part of the storyline to me was that he would have rather been seen with the handmaid.
Yeah.
Which would be so scandalous than be known to be homosexual.
Yeah.
That was I understand that was of the time, but to be seeing that as a present day person was like, God.
Yeah. Well, because it's kind of like, well, at least they think I'm with a woman.
Yeah.
But but what I love is that they show the other side with his lover who's like comfortable in his bachelorhood.
Right.
And like, of course, there was queerness in the Gilded Age. There's always been queerness. I mean, but I'm glad that they went there. And I had just come from, so everyone, there's a Bridgerton recap on our Instagram Live, because I actually think I was surprised the second season of Bridgerton didn't do a lot of queerness. And I was a little annoyed because they had teased it in the first season.
Yeah.
And I feel like the Gilded Age is actually more nuanced when it comes to desire than Bridgerton.
Bridgerton did that whole thing with that artist, though, and that like sort of like orgy setting that he had going on there.
Like a brothel.
Yeah. And I feel like that will continue to unfold as the one son probably becomes a little bit more of a prospering artist. But you're right that it was just like that bit and then that was it. And I feel like that show does offer a little bit more sexuality and like juicy, gossipy kind of behavior where they could have probably taken it to another level. But
yeah. Well, and I think we're now getting to that moment of, I'm so curious, Alex, because you interact with so many who come here. And I think people have this almost theme park understanding of the Gold Coast, right? Because we're in the Gold Coast technically.
Yes.
I guess, how would you define the Gold Coast from like a realtor?
It's definitely North Shore, Long Island. Certainly not South Shore. And mainly
South Shore
County. Yeah, sorry.
Nothing against the South Shore.
If you want to sell your home, call me.
But
shameless.
Yeah, but like the Gold Coast has kind of really got that Great Gatsby understanding of the Roaring Twenties, which isn't the Gilded Age, but it's kind of like right after. And what I'm so fascinated, sorry, going in our rabbit hole, but like, I think a lot of people don't think Great Gatsby. Like, they think Great Gatsby and they think Gilded Age, but that's not like the full history. That's kind of like
the later part of it.
It is.
That's like the fuel being let out of the tank. Like that's it to the excess.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So, what do you like? What are some questions people ask? Like, I'm just curious. Like, what do you get on a day-to-day basis?
People ask us like, what was this room? What was that room? And we don't frankly quite know sometimes. But I often tell us, like, we didn't even know this place was here. This place is a hidden gem, so to speak.
It is.
And it really is. We just get various questions about the art, the sculpture on our property. We also have a huge amount of sculpture on our grounds. We just get questions mainly about the art and some about the property.
Yeah. Yeah, and walking here is so pretty because I love the sculpture garden.
Yeah.
And I love that people, like I always say, come to picnic, like
it's a really, really lovely place to just
Yeah.
walk around, spend the afternoon.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you're like right by Roslyn Village. You're near Garden City Village, which Danielle knows. I love all of them. I'm like into all the villages of Long Island. Some more than others, but I'm not gonna tell you which. I like the North Shore villages.
Yeah.
So, okay. Like, is there any questions though that happened? Now I'm kind of looking at like the gilding on the wall.
Yeah.
But are there any questions where people get really surprised that it's not that excessive lavishness of like what they think of the Great Gatsby? Like that these Gilded Age mansions don't fit that narrative. Like there weren't crazy parties.
This was a bit of a especially in the first time, this was a bit of a later Gilded Age mansion because they moved here in 1919.
Yeah.
Which is sort of the tail end of the Gilded Age.
Right.
But we don't really get any surprises from people other than just we didn't even know this was here.
It's here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they even are surprised that this was a Frick estate.
Is there an equivalent of a ballroom downstairs?
I don't know about a ballroom. We have some parlors. That was now one of our galleries, but we had. I mean, this is something I did not mention, but the Fricks had a massive amount of landscape surrounding the property, including a ski slope.
Oh, wow!
Oh.
Yes, this was there was a ski slope on the property. There was a.
That's a first, I feel
That's
like.
a first for
There were
Yeah.
animals kept on the property, including a bear pit, apparently.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun. I like
yes.
that.
And something I
Like
need
info.
something I do need to mention is that situated on our property is also the Manus Family Education Center, which, as you may know, was the site of Millstone Labs, which was Mr. Frick's scientific research lab because Mr. Frick was a paleontologist.
Oh, okay.
And that side of the Manus Center was the site of Millstone Labs where he would conduct his research.
Oh,
Wow.
okay. So yeah, so they were, I can tell, like they were a more introverted, they didn't want
Especially Child's Frick
Yeah.
child.
and its family, yes.
Yeah, and they were nature enthusiasts. Like I can tell, like you would want this property.
Oh.
I would, like if you love the outdoors,
Right.
this is a land, this is like being with the land. kind of
Especially
property.
Mrs. Frick, who was very into nature and recruited this nature landscape designer named Marion Kruger Coffin to essentially redesign the gardens in the 1920s.
Oh,
Wow.
yeah, I like the gardens here.
Yeah,
Oh, and there's a cool, what do you call the, like where the weddings or events happen? There's like a little gazebo. It's not a gazebo, but it's
not a gazebo, but the name
it's
escapes me.
kind of, they have like a shell, like almost like a band.
The name
shell.
escapes me actually, but there is an area by the formal gardens where they have sort of this almost like a pavilion, but
Pavilion,
yeah,
yes,
somewhat,
yes.
yeah.
And if you go down the trails,
Mhm.
this is for everyone out there, you can actually see some of the older farmhouses. There's that like
Yes.
one street where
That
that
is
is farmhouse.
So that is the I believe the site of a farm of William Cullen Bryant, the Dewey Cottage, Jerusha Dewey
Yeah,
Cottage.
there,
Jerusha Dewey Cottage.
Jerusha Dewey.
Yes.
Okay,
And that is now just abandoned and
was he a Quaker?
Dewey?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Well, the only reason I ask is because I know when Brian bought his house,
Mhm.
in the 1830s-ish, he bought it from Quaker farmers.
Yeah.
This is a Quaker area.
Right.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, that makes sense.
Because Roslyn means Roseland.
Ah, okay, very good,
Yeah.
very good to know.
Yeah. Just in
Learn
case.
something new.
Very good, Danielle. One day,
Yeah.
houses in Roslyn as Roseland.
There we go.
Unfortunately, the Dewey Cottage just lays abandoned now and
Oh,
we no, it's nobody goes in there. It's really not really open to the public.
Everyone out there, don't do
But
it.
it's on the property.
It is
or-
on the property situated on our, and we've been sort of considering what to do with it essentially.
Maybe an art cottage, maybe
That would be
bed and
really good.
breakfast.
We've been working.
I'll
on
go,
that.
I'll live there. Hey,
Yeah.
Dr. Charlie Riley, I'll move in. Let me take over.
Artist residency, perhaps.
I like the artist residency.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Okay, Alex will move it. We'll take turns taking care of it.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I think as we wrap up, I mean, there's a really cool exhibit
Mhm.
that's being planned here. So Danielle and I got to see the Impressionism art, but there's
Yes.
something like drastically, excitingly different happening. So when is your new exhibit opening?
So currently we are working on an exhibition on the supernatural in art. It's called Other Worlds Than This. And it opens July 23rd.
Oh, so it's open, everyone. When you're hearing this, it's open.
Yes. So it's gonna be a lot on the supernatural and the surreal and a bit of the mythological and mythical. It's gonna feature art from everything from Salvador Dali to ancient Roman to contemporary artists such as British artist named Christopher Winter, who does a lot of ghosts and otherworldly paintings.
Macabre things.
Macabre, yes,
Okay.
yes.
So it's thematic. I love that. So
Thematic,
it's
yes.
a thematic exhibit.
We do a
for
lot of
a specific period.
We do a lot of thematic exhibitions, yes.
I like it. Well, anytime I'm here, the exhibitions are so well done. And again, I think it's
Thank you so
because
much.
your space is in a mansion, like everything
Yes.
is utilized.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like I saw some really cool Tiffany glass.
Yes,
Lanterns, no, that's not.
lamps.
Lamps, thank you.
Yeah.
Lanterns, well, because a huge one is a lantern, yes. But the way like the light, literally, you can all see right now, the light is shining from the balcony
Mhm.
of the second floor. So it's a really beautiful experience to be here.
For sure.
The nature, the sculpture garden.
Mhm.
Let's see, what else can we throw out there? Well, you have a lot of cool events.
We do have a lot of cool, fun, some members events, a lot of family events and education programs.
Weddings,
Weddings, yes, we are a big venue for weddings.
Yeah. graduations, I guess.
You guys should turn
We could
that
do.
farmhouse into like a honeymoon suite.
Oh my God.
Ooh, I like that.
Okay.
Danielle could like, we should, we all put that with her real estate background. Okay. Well, you could like run the,
Right?
run the books.
Looking.
Yeah, you're doing the bookings.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, what day? Okay, you're good. Oh, it's in the summer, it's an extra such and such. I'll have the fall. I know.
We do a lot of family programming here and we are very.
Classes.
Yes, at the Manus Center.
Okay.
Go sign up.
Yeah.
We've actually taken my children here, actually not to the Nana Center, but we came for an interactive exhibit that you guys did, I guess around the holidays a couple years ago. My kids loved it. There was all kinds of like art projects to do and little crafts and things.
Wonderful.
Maybe like when you guys had Hunt Slonim, I feel like.
That was.
That
Yeah,
was-
Hunt Slonim was a good exhibition.
That was great.
Yeah. Oh, and I think you do a light show too.
We are contracted with a company to do a lantern festival,
Oh, that's.
during around, end of Halloween towards, the new year.
That's really,
Oh, I'll have to come back.
I'll be back.
Okay, we'll be back. We'll
Yeah.
figure out. I am sure there's gonna be something out in the media
Yeah.
connected to
Yeah.
the Gilded Age connected. Maybe even we can get more, like, we could even do a Great Gatsby kind of discussion. 'Cause
That was really nice.
we like have not touched the surface with the rowdiness. 'Cause
Yeah.
There's the
We
rowdiness.
did do a Jazz Age show back in.
Oh, that's right.
2017.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, and also, are we allowed to say that there's going to be something Gilded Age related?
There may be something next, summer, pertaining to the Gilded Age. Coming to the museum. I can't really reveal much, but it may reveal something about Long Island and the Gilded Age. So stay tuned for next year.
Like, you might want to be reading a lot of Edith Wharton.
Edith Wharton.
Danielle,
yes.
I'll be
You might want to get your membership for the museum now, so that you're the
Yes.
first to find out about
That's
it when
true,
it happens.
that's true.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna like, give Danielle some Edith Wharton recommendations.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get you up to speed.
I need to learn. I actually just started listening to a podcast. I think it's called The Gilded Men,
Mhm.
but there's like a whole
Ooh.
Wow.
series about Edith Wharton.
That's so
yeah.
interesting.
Well, and offline, I'll tell you, but everyone out there, there's an amazing, if you go on Audible, like type Edith Wharton drama, and there's condensed performances of her
Wow.
books.
Okay.
Because I like
Like
to
the
hear,
innocence and stuff?
exactly, like, so they're doing
That's
more
cool.
of a radio play.
Wow,
I think it registers
Yeah.
well. I love
Yeah.
just listening to that.
that sounds amazing.
Okay, well, Danielle, where can everyone find you? What is going on right now with your market of real estate?
So there's a lot happening right
Yeah.
now. Obviously, we all know that there's a lot of changes happening in the market. I am at Compass, primarily in Garden City, but all over New York. If anybody is looking to buy or sell a house, or just wants to talk about historic homes, I'm here for that too. You can find me on Instagram at Danielle Nero. That's Nero Realtor.
Related to
Otherwise,
the ancient Roman Emperor Nero?
I just told my son that yesterday. He was asking me about the Colosseum, so I turned on this whole like documentary for him. And as they were running through the emperors, I was like, so eventually they're gonna get to one with our name, and he was evil.
Oh, yeah.
He was like, that's cool. I was like, you're already a tyrant. We don't need to learn anymore from that guy.
But yeah, so, okay, well, follow Danielle. Also,
Yeah.
Alex, where can they follow you?
So you can follow our page at Nassau Museum, one word, Nassau Museum. And my personal Instagram is ACMACCARO, AC Maccaro. And our
An
website.
Irish name.
And our website is nassaumuseum.org, and we would love to have you visit
Yeah.
our museum.
Yeah. And you might see me, probably. You'll see Danielle. 'cause
You'll
we're-
see us together
Yes.
as I help Andrew look for.
Yeah, she's my real estate agent, so I'm in this area a lot. Okay. Manifesting things, because the
Yes.
podcast is good for manifesting. We speak and it happens. I believe that. Thank you all. Make sure you really want to see this video. So if you're listening to audio, go to our Patreon, patreon.com/Ivory Tower Boiler Room. You can watch all video interviews unedited. You're going to see the ins and outs of us recording here. Maybe I'll put some of the bloopers up of us trying to test the audio. $5 a month, which is less than iced coffee at Starbucks, I can tell you. And I know Danielle and Alex are big Starbucks people too. So that price, well, it's another discussion for a different day. Inflation is a whole other discussion.
Right.
Thank you all. And that's our Gilded Age series. So I think we might be back with something in the late fall, winter. So we'll be back. We'll find something. Okay. Bye everyone.
Bye-bye now.